Okay, so welcome back to the BSN channel. Today, what I'm gonna discuss, seeing as it's been requested, is my opinion on the grime scene. Okay, it's nighttime, so I can't speak too loud because certain people get moody. But anyways, my opinion on the grime scene. Well, I witnessed the start of grime because living in South London, I witnessed the birth of grime. Grime started in East London. To say when grime changed, it's hard to put a pinpoint on that. I'd say personally, in my opinion, grime started '03. There was a transition stage from '02, '03, then '04 it was just straight grime. But the big question that I see many comments going through between Americans and British people, Canadians, Europeans, whatever, is, does grime come from hip hop? And the answer is no. Is grime influenced by hip hop? Yes, most definitely influenced by hip hop. There's no getting away around that. Grime started approximately over 10 years ago. Grime doesn't sound the same anymore. A lot of grime heads like me would agree saying that grime isn't as raw as it used to be. It's more polished. It's closer to hip hop instrumentals. But let me say why grime is not from hip hop. Okay. Grime essentially came from the sound of grime. We're not talking about the MC, or we're just talking about the sound. The sound came from garage. Okay. Garage essentially came from US garage or US house music. So we're not saying that the roots didn't come from America. It just didn't come through hip hop. Now, it's hard to explain grime because grime has so many influences. It's not just hip hop is not the only influence, but the root of grime is definitely garage. There's no if, buts, or maybes. Garage came from America, or house music. House music came from America. When it came to this country, we had our own flavor to it. We added our own flavor to the point where it was its own genre. So you had US house, you had UK house, you had US garage, you had UK garage. They were all separate entities, but essentially garage came from America. More the Midwest, to be exact, like Detroit, Chicago. They were very big on house music. As you can see from people like Danny Brown, that's his connection. So there is a strong connection. Another thing is, hip hop and house music, they have a common root themselves, which is disco music. So basically, the sound of grime, which is the instrumental, came through house, garage. And from garage, there was influences that changed grime. So that will be dancehall. You can include soca if you wanted to. Also jungle. And then hip hop. Now, in my opinion, the influence that hip hop has on grime is definitely through the format of bars. So trying to be extra lyrical, trying to tell a certain story, I'd say that has a hip hop influence. When I watched the Krypton Conan interview and Hot 97, I feel like they didn't explain it properly, but at the same time, it wasn't in their place to explain it. Clapton Cronan are not grime artists. They are hip hop or rappers. You know, they came from grime though. I don't know if people remember, but when I was young, they came from South London, just like I did, and we're in the same generation. I knew people who knew people that went to the same college as Crept, and they started with a crew called Gypset. That was predominantly grime. You know, if you want to listen to that, go back, type in Gypset, Gipset, and that will be pure grime. That's what we was listening to when we grew up. From when I was going to school, when was I going to school? From between 02 and 07. That's when I was going to school. So I was listening to them around, I remember year 9 or something. That's like 05. So grime was about 2-3 years old at that point. Everyone on the road or on the streets, whatever, we all listened to grime. Grime and rap were separate things. So when you used to say, yo, you want to spit? Usually that was on grime. Everyone had grime beats. I didn't really get into hip hop until, around the same time, to be honest. Get Rich or Die Trying. That was 50 Cent. Before, I was listening to Garage before it turned into grime. So when we was young, we respected rap, but it wasn't the same as grime. So when you say you want to spit, then someone put on a grime beat, and then you spit. And that's not usually off top. It's usually premeditated bars. Then, if you want to rap, it was usually a cappella. So people stop the beat, and then you do a cappella, you spit slow. Usually you freestyle off the top. So that's how we associated rap with. What's the main difference? Obviously the tempo. Grime is 140 BPM. Hip hop is much slower. I don't know the exact BPM, but there's more freedom with hip hop. With grime, less freedom. It's more rigid. I think one person gave a good example. They said hip hop is like a normal boxing ring. With your normal boxers. You have space to move. You can lean on the ropes. You can dance around, or you can stay in the middle. With grime, it's like a much smaller ring. It's like a sparring ring. It's not much places to move. You can't keep running away. Like, you're gonna get beaten up. The beat will beat you up. Essentially. So grime is very rigid. You gotta keep punching. I'm not talking about punchlines. I just mean you gotta keep moving. Alright. So there's a big argument between Americans and English people in comments, and it's quite funny when I read it. There's one side, English people are saying Americans are being ignorant, and Americans are saying that English people are denying or disrespecting hip hop by saying grime is not a subgenre of hip hop. I understand both views. I can understand why Americans would look at grime and essentially think, oh, this is hip hop. Because you've got other subgenres of, let's say, rap or hip hop, which sounds familiar to grime. Like Miami bass has a similar beats per minute. But its root is directly hip hop. The difference with grime is the root didn't come from hip hop. It came straight from garage. Garage was more about being in the vibe, being with your girl. It's more about the melody. It wasn't really about talking about yourself or talking about the next guy, like, I'm gonna punch you up, I've got guns in my house. Like, no, it wasn't about that. I mean, for me personally, garage started to change when certain crews emerged, like So Solid, Heartless, Pay As You Go. These were the crews that paved the way for grime, in my opinion. Like, when So Solid crew was sort of beefing with Dizzy and Wiley, a very early Dizzy, shall I say, that was a monumental time for me because that was two. How do I say it? It was like two genres bridging a gap, or it was like the end of an era and the start of a new one. It was the end of garage and the start of grime. So when we say that grime came from garage, we're not trying to disrespect hip hop. We respect hip hop. We love hip hop. Most of us do. But you gotta understand the instrumental survived before the MC. So most Americans will look at grime and just see people rapping on a beat, rapping on a grime beat. And they'll be like, oh, right, well, because it's rapping on a beat, it's hip hop. But people need to know, there was rap before hip hop was called hip hop. Yeah, people used to rap before hip hop was called hip hop. So when Ebro said, oh, anyone who raps on a beat, that's hip hop. But what about thousands of years ago in African civilizations where you had a certain person who used to recite proverbs and lyrics and stories or oral history over drum instrumentals? Would you call that hip hop? That wasn't hip hop. That led to hip hop. That's a root of hip hop. So when you say, oh, when you rap on any beat, it's hip hop, that doesn't make sense. You know? Hip hop, I'm not good at explaining it, but we know how it started. It started with Kool Herc, with how he manipulated tracks. I think it has something to do with the break beat, something. I can't really explain myself properly with that. Something to do with samples. You have to talk to a proper DJ or someone who knows about musical theory to explain that. But I just want to let people know that grime doesn't come from hip hop because the sound doesn't come from hip hop. The influence that hip hop has on grime is the way we rap or spit on grime. So the punchlines, the metaphors, that's a hip hop influence as far as I'm concerned. So the more lyrical grime spitters, to me, they're more influenced by hip hop. Then you got people who more shout on the mic, more chanting, and I'm gonna be honest, grime isn't that receptive when it comes to lyrical rappers. Someone like Devlin, Ghetto, they are respected. Don't get me wrong, but they don't get as much popularity as they should have. Do you know why? Because it's more about cadence, flow, energy. And really that stuff really comes from dancehall. That style is a dancehall, soca, jungle sort of influence. So you got two different types of spitters. The more lyrical type, that's just straight hip hop influence. So when you hear someone who can really spit on grime lyrically, like Krypton Conan back in the day, they were doing punchlines from early. That's why you could tell they also listened to rap. They applied it on grime. But because I want to do this in one take, there's going to be, a bit of breaks. It's hard to be cohesive because it's quite a big topic. What's the other thing I want to say? People will remember, I think I said this before, just like hip hop and house as well, it starts off with the DJ with the decks, way before the MC comes involved. Like for example, I don't remember Africa Bambaataa really rapping. I don't remember Kool Herc rapping. The DJ and the beat existed before anything, just like grime. So if you remove the MC and you just have the early grime beats that sounded like a dark version of garage, because garage started getting darker, people didn't know what to call it, Some people call it sub-low, some call it esky, some people call it, I don't know, like people had many names. And then grime just stuck. Because it came to a point where you couldn't call it garage. You still had people calling it garage. Oh, do you want to spit on garage? It took a long time until it was called grime. It's the sound which doesn't come from hip hop. You gotta understand that. You gotta separate the whole rapping side or spitting side of it and just focus on the sound. The sound itself really has nothing to do with hip hop. And that's essentially what it is. What came from hip hop is the lyrics. Not all of it, because I've already explained, half of that style comes from dancehall. The whole clashing, the sound clashing, that's a dancehall influence. The energy, I could say that's a soca or a jungle influence. Or the rapid flows that could be from jungle as well. Also, the styles that was on garage. Like the sort of nice flows, the nice melodies on grime essentially come from the garage melodies. And then you have the whole barring. Like you gotta have bars. Bars. What, you ain't got bars? I got more bars. That's a hip hop influence. Clearly that's a hip hop influence. You gotta have bars. But the root itself is garage. I don't know if I explained this very well. But there is a common root of all these things, and there's definitely disco music, electronic music, and it also dates back to when the slaves used to sing their songs. They all split and made their own branches, and hip hop is such a big branch that it's very easy to just think grime comes from there because they rap. But when essentially, take it from someone like me who, I was there in the beginning of grime. I started on grime. My first lyrics was on grime. And the way you format your lyrics is totally different from the way you format lyrics on hip hop. Hip hop, I can really expand my thoughts. I can really paint a picture. Grime is, you've really got to get to the point. It's boom, 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 boom. You can do metaphors, punchlines, but you got to have a really good cadence and flow, or it's just going to be meaningless. Like, flow is essential. You haven't got flow on grime, you need to get off the mic. It's serious like that. So really, all these arguments about whether grime is hip hop or it is hip hop, we all need to just try and understand each other's opinions. You know, us British people, we need to see how Americans look at it. It's grime is foreign. Grime has only become popular now, but it started 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. You know? Sometimes I think, where were people when grime started? No one cared about grime when grime started. No one didn't want to hear about grime. Everyone shunned grime. You know? That's why I was able to buy 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying before I even bought a garage record. I used to, record cassettes on radio, but that's different. My first record that I bought was Guess Who's Back. But then I bought Get Rich Die Trying. That's because of the promotion. This country showed no respect to UK music or UK black music. I don't like saying UK black music because there was white people involved, there was Asian people involved, so no, I don't even like saying that. But people like Dizzy Rascal had to fight so hard just to be heard. Do you know how hard he had to fight? When you had black American rappers get promoted way more. And I know it's not their fault, it's to do with the corporations. It's a higher level thing. It's only now we're getting recognition. But not for authentic grime though. There's only a few records that made it, and that's like Pow from Lethal Bizzle, Dizzy Rascal's album, which to me as a young boy, I think I was about 14, that was revolutionary. He changed, I wouldn't say he changed it, but he was part of the change of grime, which you can easily say there was a hip hop influence to that, because he was really telling stories, you know, and that's a hip hop influence once again. People wasn't really telling stories on grime back in the day, you know. People was trying to spell their names, you know, T to the R, from the T to the R to the D to the D to the D to the D. Like it was so simple, just elementary. Then you had Dizzy Rascal, bang. Then he just, I don't know. Like for me as a young kid, yeah, I couldn't believe what he was doing. I didn't know there was any such thing. I thought you had to listen to hip hop to get stories. So what you need to understand is, grime cannot be hip hop because it never started off that way. It started off with the beat. The beat has no MC. The DJ can mix beats. Sometimes I listen to grime beats without the MC. I don't want to hear MC on the beat. I just want to hear the beats. And that's how it was in the beginning. DJ mixing the beat. Producers making darker garage beats. So dark that they made a totally new genre. And that is called grime. And everything else, dancehall, soca, jungle, hip hop, all came after. I don't know if I explained that well. Just to make it clear, I'm not on anyone's side. That's just how I see it. I respect both opinions. Whether you think I'm chatting rubbish or I'm spitting facts, I respect all opinions. It's just my opinion. But there's one more fact I've got to mention. If you listen to an old grime track, it's totally different to new grime tracks. Like, grime production has changed. Like, nowadays it's sounding more American. And not more American, that actually doesn't make sense. That's not the word I want to use. It's sounding more close to rap, hip hop. Because with drill music is a bit faster. The beat is a bit faster. It's a faster hip hop sort of beat. There's similarities to how drill music and new grime music is. And they're slowly overlapping. But again, they both have different roots. But it's not impossible for them to meet. I don't really want them to meet. They should both make their own journeys. But I can see both of them interlink. A lot of these new grime instrumentals are sounding trappish, if you know what I mean. They seem a bit slower. Like when you try and spit the normal tempo to grime, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's still grime, but it's like watered down. I remember when beats were so raw, you didn't know whether you wanted to spit on them. You was just like, raw, this is grimy. Like, this is peak. I just want to listen to it. It'll give you this face, huh? That's what grime was back in the day. Grime is when you're just fizzing your head like that's grime. And that's the beat. I'm not even talking about the lyrics. That's just the beat alone, just making you. That's probably why there was quite a lot of violence in the beginning of grime. That's when the roads were dangerous. London was a dangerous place those times. But I don't want to make this too long, so I hope I went through all the points. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, just write in the comments, and I'll try my best to give my opinion. So I hope you enjoyed. If you like the video, please like. If you dislike, feel free to dislike. If you haven't already, subscribe. God bless.